and more. Find out more at sidekickmediaservices.com.
I'm your pal in the mainstream media.
And I'm your Riz.
And you know, Riz, it takes years of strenuous, dedicated training before you're worthy to step inside a professional wrestling ring. But it takes even more time to develop complex, highly astute opinions about professional wrestling. Am I right?
That is correct. You know where we can find that?
Yes.
On the Wrestling Ham.
That's right.
Sidekick Media Services. We are your sidekick in business for social media, video production, and more. Find out more at sidekickmediaservices.com.
Hello, friends. I'm your pal in the mainstream media.
And I'm your Riz.
And you know, Riz, it takes years of strenuous, dedicated training before you're worthy to step inside a professional wrestling ring. But it takes even more time to develop complex, highly astute opinions about professional wrestling. Am I right?
That is correct. You know where we can find that?
Yes.
On the Wrestling Ham.
That's right.
Sidekick Media Services. We are your sidekick in business for social media, video production, and more. Find out more at sidekickmediaservices.com.
Hello, friends. I'm your pal in the mainstream media.
And I'm your Riz.
And you know, Riz, it takes years of strenuous, dedicated training before you're worthy to step inside a professional wrestling ring. But it takes even more time to develop complex, highly astute opinions about professional wrestling. Am I right?
That is correct. You know where we can find that?
Yes.
On the Wrestling Ham.
That's right.
Sidekick Media Services. We are your sidekick in business for social media, video production, and more. Find out more at sidekickmediaservices.com.
Hello, friends. I'm your pal in the mainstream media.
And I'm the Riz.
And, you know, Riz, it takes years of strenuous, dedicated training before you're worthy to step in.
This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com. This show is brought to you by Slice on Broadway, supporting Pittsburgh podcasting with the perfect pepperoni pizza. Production services by Sidekick Media Services. And listeners like you, supporting us at patreon.com/awesomecast. It is the AwesomeCast episode 689. It's time to get geeky, get awesome. I'm all messed up because this is Monday, guys. We were going to do something on the road because we had some moving around schedules. But I'm like, you know what? It's WWDC day. You know, let's see who's available. Let's see what we can get going on here. And I don't want to have to bring a whole bunch of extra equipment to do it. I just don't have another hotel podcast in me anymore. Okay, it's been a really long travel season, and we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But with me, also with me, the light of my evening, the other WWDC watcher tonight, Dave Podnar is with us, who of course will be getting into this over on his own iPhoneography podcast too later tonight. I guess you guys are recording, right?
Yep. We're going to focus on just the photography part.
Yes.
But there were some WWDC things besides, well, we'll get into it, but there's one thing that really kind of got me going.
I'm really interested in a lot of that, your thoughts of that. Now, I got to say, I did not watch live. I decided to take the afternoon since I'm going to be leaving for the rest of the week. I took some time with my wife, and I went and saw the new Bad Boys movie. As you saw, I know, Dave, you definitely responded to my Twitter. Listen, I discovered today. We can have a little bit of fun stuff before we get into the business. First of all, I discovered today how soft I love the Dolby Theater. That's why I have AMC A-List. Kind of just go to the Dolby Theater whenever I want, right, and not have to worry about it. So, and I'm just feeling good. I have a day between the travel, and I was just kind of catching up with things, just taking a minute for myself, and I'm just like, hey, you know what? Just enjoying the softness of the Dolby Theater walls as I was coming in. And then, of course, after the movie, I went and looked at my Twitter, and Dave is apparently checking on the cubicle walls. Not as soft, he says.
No.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that enjoyment today once I got out of the movie theater. Anyways, hey, so we're going to forgo the awesome things and everything. We're going to talk about WWDC. We have a guest that should be coming in about halfway through here, and we're going to be hopefully talking about an interesting experiment by a comic book artist with artificial intelligence image creation that maybe you saw us share here over the last couple of weeks. But I don't want to get into it until we definitely have them on. I see we do have some people viewing, and some people are probably very interested in our thoughts on the new Apple announcements. But before I get ahead of myself, I do want to give a shout because I'm afraid I'm going to forget about with a different format tonight and it being Monday and I forget everything. Thank you to everybody that does support the show. Patreon.com/awesomecast. With the travel schedule, I don't have anything extra really planned for you guys. We're not going to have time to kind of get it in this week, but we'll be back with it next week. I hope you enjoyed the conversations we have been having. We did return to that last week. And also, this is probably officially the anniversary week, by the way, because it's something around June 10th that we started. So happy 14 years of the AwesomeCast because we love to celebrate, I guess, here.
Fireworks. We're in Pittsburgh. Fireworks.
There you go. Home run, baby. So thank you everybody that does support the show at patreon.com/awesomecast. Yeah, so I'm not pursuing advertising or anything, although I have some affiliate ideas I might throw out there for you. But please click those Amazon links. Not that we've ever really made anything on it, but I'm kind of curious, right? But thank you to everybody at the Coffee Club level, Cynthia Klosky, Matt Weller at the Fan of the Show level, Michael Fedor, John DeGore, and Dave Podnar, spouse of Rooster Really Affair at roosterreallyaffair.com. I don't know why I'm putting your prof pod in there tonight. I never do that, do I? I mean, I think it's because I was just tagging you on Twitter and it's on my head.
There we go. That could be it.
There it is.
That could be
So WWDC, the Worldwide Developer Conference, Apple
Dub.
Palooza. What was that?
Dub.
Dub, as the
Dub.
kids call it, as the whippersnappers call it out there, I guess. But anyways, so a lot of stuff today, and I gotta confess, all I really watched was the 11-minute recap of the AI section from The Verge, but I think that's the bulk of things today, so I don't know much. You said there's some interesting math with iPad that we can hopefully get into. Actually, should we do the less interesting points before we get into the AI discussion?
Sure.
Okay.
So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just give me kind of a quick rundown, Dave,
Okay.
of what I missed.
Okay. First of all, you miss goofiness and parkour.
Oh, what?
You miss Craig Federighi's stunt double doing parkour,
Oh, jeez.
and a bunch of Apple executives skydiving to start off the whole presentation.
Oh my
including-
God! Do you remember the Google Glass one?
Yeah. There was one person. Now, admittedly, these were not the real people skydiving because they had
Okay.
the executives. They had like the board up there, including Craig with his special helmet that was silver, that was like a stylized hair.
Oh my God! I'm just gonna do stills from this because I don't want to get a takedown. What the hell is happening right now?
They're skydiving, and
Oh,
as
no.
they're jumping out, the parachutes pop open. On top of the parachutes are the different OSs, like Vision OS, iOS, iPad OS.
What the hell is happening?
There, you can see the silver helmet. The silver
I
helmet
love
there.
it. Oh, jeez.
So yeah, goofiness. Now, some of the highlights that I hit. It's still a grid on the home screen, but you don't have to fill up the grid.
Okay.
So you can, like, if you have a photo that with like the picture with the face in the middle,
Yes.
you can have like a row on top, a row.
Wait,
on the
what are we
bottom,
talking
and
about?
it
Are we talking about?
iOS and iPad OS.
Okay.
So you don't have that solid grid. You can leave spaces open. They still have to be in a grid-ish pattern, but they don't have to be like a solid line of grid. You can make a tint to a screen. So you can make a screen yellow tint or blue tint if you want. Control
okay.
center is multi-screen.
So you're talking about like the
Yeah.
icons. You can make it so every icon is like the shade of red on
Right.
black and stuff like that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Control center is now 3 pages
Wow.
or multiple pages. I said multiple. So you have your base one, and you can change what's on there, and you can scroll through it and add and remove things. So it's a lot more customized, and I can hear the
Okay.
Android people.
Oh, off in the
Yelling,
distance.
we
I hear
got that 5-10 years ago.
I hear
That's
the
wonderful,
gnashing of
but-
teeth of the Android people. Yes.
Yeah. Let's see here. You can lock an app.
What do you mean?
So you need to open an app. You can make it where you require either the password or Face ID or fingerprint to open up an app, a particular app.
Sure.
So you can lock it down to make it more secure. That's a good thing. Make it safer for the kids too.
Sure.
Oh, kid, you can't open that. You need the ID. You need Face ID. So we're going to double check that. If you do trail and hiking, you can in maps you can make your own trail. They've also included the trails from the national parks, and you can download them for offline use.
Oh, sounds like a hit at all trails that Katie and I have been enjoying.
Yeah, there's a lot of hit at things. Let's see here. Go for iOS here. For photos, so you can do it where you can filter out screenshots when you look at your photos, so they're not in your list of photos. That's a big deal. You can, when you have people, it'll actually show you a group of people. So if you have a bunch of if you have a lot of photos with multiple people together, they'll actually be grouped, and collections are already set up. So you can see like at the underneath, they have like the recent days, the collection, the peoples, the pets, and your favorites are now slid on the side. So it's a little bit different of a setup that way.
Okay.
And of course, all this is like machine learning, artificial learning in the background here.
Mm-hmm.
They went the whole first hour without mentioning AI.
Wow.
But things like, doing more advanced searches on your photos, that is kind of AI related.
Mm-hmm.
With, let's see here. Okay, if you have AirPods Pro, which I don't have, but neat feature, instead of having to respond to Siri, like if you have a phone call coming in, okay, you're in a crowded elevator. If it says, "Do you want to answer this?" you can shake your head yes or no.
I like that.
To respond to yes or no questions.
I like that.
That's a nice thing. Apple TV Plus, they have like an Amazon X-ray.
Yeah.
So you can see the actors.
I like that, and I'm sure
yeah.
it's going to connect with apps and other shops eventually as well. So
Exactly, and if the music is on there, you can
makes sense.
Get it from Apple Music if you subscribe.
Yep.
If you have a watch, they have a new thing called Training Load, which is something both Garmin and Strava currently have.
Okay.
It tells you with a combination of heart rate, how long you're running, your elevation, how steep you're running, how much exertion you're going out.
Okay, I kind of like that as I'm kind of looking at these marathons that you keep putting in front of me.
That's a big thing. If you're a ring person and let's say you're injured or you're sick, you can pause the rings.
Nice.
So you're like, or let's say for in your case, I'm traveling all day.
Yeah.
I won't be able to do it. Or let's say, hey, I have my workout set up where let's say you're running on let's say you're doing running on Tuesday, Thursday, and you're doing strength exercises on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or however you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on those days, your exercise output probably won't be as high. You can change it. You can set goals per day.
Whoa. Okay. That's I like that. I like that because it's like, you bring it up, but it's like I'm in a car. I was literally in a car for like 5 hours on Sunday.
Yeah.
Or on a plane for like 8 hours. Or planes and airports for 8 hours a couple weeks ago. So yeah, because I always look at my map. I was like, God, I look like a lazy ass. It's like, no, I've been strapped to a seat and needed to be. So or doing work or out on a job where I can't find the time to do the movement.
Exactly.
So
there's a new Vitals app that are coming, which combines various vitals, and it'll show you your trend over the last week, and if you're trending up or down. That's a big deal. And the Translate app will now be on the watch.
Nice.
So that to me is a big thing. Oh, Amanda also mentioned, and this is more on the AI side. Just like Google showed where you can just kind of circle people and erase people from images. You can do that also. Nice. For the iPad, they changed some things around how it looks. For me, the math, first of all, calculator on the iPad.
Woo! Finally, the dark days are over. We have a calculator on the iPad.
But one thing that's kind of neat is that there's a thing on the calculator called Math Notes that you can use the Apple Pencil, write down stuff, and the minute you put equals, it will solve the equation for you.
Oh, jeez.
So it reads your handwriting. So for people who can look on the screen now, you can define variables. So you can say n equals this, y equals this, and then down below, write an equation with x and y in it, and it'll solve it. And if you put y equals, it'll graph it for you. And it's interactive. So if you change a variable, you can erase it, put a new number in, and it'll redo the calculation.
Wow.
So it is fully interactive. So they should have put a calculator in from the beginning. Third party, there are some great third parties.
It's weird. It's just such a strange omission, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
the other thing about handwriting is that there's something called Smart Script now, where if you do the handwriting on the iPad, it'll just tighten up your handwriting and make it a little neater.
I like that. I really like some of I guess we'll get into some more AI stuff, but
yeah. Well, like I said, this is all kind of in my mind kind of AI-ish because let's say you write a note in handwriting, you can erase part of the note in the middle, and it will reformat the image and tighten it up. Or if you copy some text that is typed, you can paste it, and it will paste in your handwriting, so it will match your handwriting. So you won't just paste the text; it'll match your handwriting. So that, to me, this is all like machine. Trying to figure out handwriting and match handwriting. That's machine learning AI without AI now being just large language models.
The quasi AI that's actually been in there for a while, right? Like they've had a bit of that. They've had things like smart spell check and things like that. So let's get into it. AI, which is being labeled as Apple Intelligence. Way to go, Apple! The way to go to make it your own, bud. So, so here's the highlights that I got, because this is the part that I did mostly deep dive on when I was catching up on what was going on today. So my understanding of this, and please correct me where your understanding is different, and a lot of these will be clarified. I mean, these are and this is something that isn't even going to come out until, if you get the beta downloaded. Apparently, this is not even going to be a part of that.
No.
It says the beta is coming in the fall for this. That will all be, I guess, beta testers for, I would imagine. So the idea.
Real quick, not all. Because the AI is only available for iPhone 15 Pro, not 15, 15 Pro.
Oh, jeez.
And iPads with the M1.
Okay.
And Macs with the M1.
So this is.
So you need the M1 chip.
So we have been, and this goes with the, as far as the iPhone side, they've been putting extra chips in there that they probably hadn't turned on yet. To do a lot of this extra heavy lifting, right? Like that kind of math coprocessor, AI coprocessor, whatever you want to call it. Like this is something they've been implementing as of. I think it was something they did put over with the new phone last year, and of course, this is where it's going to start to activate. So the idea is with Apple Intelligence is you'd have the smart AI Siri upgrade situation, but it is all happening classic Apple on device. So things where it is supposedly learning, like that is your daughter and this is where the play is, and and you can ask on device, and it's talking about Mac, iPhone, iPad. Hey, where was that file? What was that email? Where did they send me this file from? Hey, can you send me that file that Bob sent me last week? You'll bring that to the surface. And especially, this is obviously like probably mostly if you have everything in iCloud and that kind of situation where they can all see that. But it's again, it's on device, much like we talk about your security with your Face ID and your thumbprint. It should be doing that just on device, not on the cloud. And that's what a lot of people are worried about, that privacy right now, especially with the Adobe news over the TOS over this last week. Maybe we'll get to that if we have a moment. I know we've been talking about a lot on the back end on Slack a bit, and of course there's new news about that coming out that I just listened to from yesterday's podcast that are in my listen list. But anyway, so the idea is you can say things like Siri's kind of like more overtaking. They said about there's like a line around the outside of the phone. I didn't get to see this. I was kind of listening while I was driving.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, instead of the Siri right now being the little circle that pops up, the entire phone has an outline,
a little bit of
which kind of flashes that shows that Siri's is listening.
It's a takeover, but not a takeover. It sounds like you can still see everything, but it's still like a general like "Hi, I'm here" kind of situation.
Exactly.
So that's the biggest thing. Like and things like it can do the image generation in app in something like Notes. They talk about it, I think it was like Keynote or Freeform or something. You write up something and you can just like kind of like draw a circle and say, I forget what the image thing was called. Image Playground, isn't it?
Image
something Playground.
Image Creator, I believe.
Image Creator. There's a Playground something.
Playground.
Maybe this is two different. This is probably two different.
Oh,
things.
no. Playground would be something else. Yeah, you're right.
But the idea was, hey, I wrote a paragraph here. I have this empty space on this slide or Freeform, and it'll look at all the text and generate something that applies to that.
Right. Or if you did a quick sketch, but if you do like a quick sketch of something, you can circle it with the pencil and say, okay,
make this better.
Make it better. Yeah.
Make this better.
Which unfortunately, what they selected didn't make it better.
Oh no!
The hand-drawn sketch looked great.
Okay.
It was a hand-drawn sketch, but then it made it into generic AI image.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, you're gonna have that too. So
give it to someone like me who can't draw.
So, and they said, for things that they cannot do on device, there was some discussion about anonymized data will go out for processing, but it's nothing that anybody can look at.
So the details are, there's kind of 3 levels. There's on device, there's Apple's private servers. So if something's too advanced for on device, it will go to the Apple server, which is run on Apple chips, which will be reviewed by third party to make sure that it's secure. But there are times where it has to go to the large language model, and they do have an agreement with ChatGPT, but it will tell you, oh, it looks like ChatGPT has a solution to this. Do you want to send it out to them? And you don't need an account. You don't have to pay for it. But if you do have a paid account, you can connect them up. So it's still more secure than going to ChatGPT on your own in terms of what gets passed back and forth and anonymized. But if you ask like, oh, I have these 5 things, what recipe can I make? Siri will say, oh, you know what? I think the ChatGPT may have a better answer than I do. Do you want to send it to them?
Okay, so it gives you the option versus saying, "Here,
Right.
let me search on the web for you."
Right,
And this
right.
is, and then you brought up the ChatGPT situation. So they did say that there is going to be integration with ChatGPT, and I do see this as kind of a situation where current Siri does say, "Hey, let me reach out beyond myself and go to OpenAI or ChatGPT for this." So first there's that. It's like, okay, we have the stuff that we generated here. That's the on-device thing, and this is where I think we should separate our conversations a little bit as far as AI goes, because there's a lot of conversations about, oh, everybody's asking like what Google's doing with search and AI. I think is the thing that's really kind of peeved me off about what Google's doing between that and the ad blocker situation. So I have that. So let's separate that a little bit. I think I need to plug into AI to answer a question factually. I think that is a mistake. Using it as a web search is a mistake. Taking AI to look at a finite piece of information, which could just be all the data in your life on your phone and your computer, sure, right? But taking that or these manuals for these cameras and video equipment, or here's all the transcripts for all the podcasts that we've done, all 600 or 689 episodes of this show, right? Like, is that the right number? I feel like I plugged the wrong number in. I'm gonna go check that in a moment. But yeah, like that kind of situation, right? Like it feels like if you have AI look at this thing and analyze it, that is the right number. You can do a lot of really cool things with that. It says, hey, your daughter sent you this last week, kind of thing, when you ask. Like, hey, this is how you do this process on here according to this. It doesn't make up things like put arsenic in your recipe. Kind of situation. There's a lot of bad data on there. I go back to when I used to talk to Auto Drive Challenge students, and they're like, yeah, we're training all of our cameras to know what a stop sign and a deer is, but the data pack that we bought, it had bad stuff on it, and it kept thinking a deer was a stop sign, because there was just like terrible mean graphics or terrible graphics in there. If the information is bad, it's like video, garbage in, garbage out, right? But anyways, so back to this. So we're narrowing things down as far as what Apple Intelligence is doing, which is a good way to separate itself, to say we are not, because it was very, we are not AI, we are Apple Intelligence, correct? Like, was that the tone of most of that conversation in the second hour?
It was, yeah. And they really pushed the Apple Intelligence. So, and to separate them from generalized large language models.
Yes.
Because the one thing they also pushed was it has to be personalized. It has to be seamlessly integrated. That's something they pushed big time. So just like when Apple put an NFC chip in its phone, they didn't tell you there was an NFC chip. They said there's something called Apple Pay that has tap to pay. Where Android pushed the NFC chip because that's what it was, but Apple pushed the end user how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So-
like you don't need to know what's going on. Don't look behind the curtain. This is what you're getting, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's a good way to do it because you don't need the general iPhone user doesn't need to know what artificial. It's like, hey, Siri does this now. It's all you need to know. Oh, and we're taking care of your data. Obviously there will be security experts like crazy looking at this. It's like, are they really doing this? Well, I think this is doing this, and this, we'll find out, right? Kind of thing. Like, is the stuff happening on your phone really going to be that private? Is it now? Who knows? I mean, you're sucking it all up into the iCloud for
Yeah.
starters. So I think there's, so let's start with let's get by on whether you do trust Apple. Let's go it on face value as far as this discussion goes. Obviously, we'll have security discussions, I'm sure, down the line when those stories develop. But I think this is the idea that separates it from your chat GPTs and everything else. And the other very exciting thing is, and I already had this in my brain, and I caught the end of Day of the Tech News Show. They were saying the same thing. It was like, hey, did anybody like under the radar kind of notice when they said chat GPT now and others in the future? So
Yeah.
much like, okay, we're going to default Google search on your Safari browser, but you can throw Bing or DuckDuckGo in there if you really want to, right? Or
Yeah.
Siri. I think Siri, you can change what Siri references too, right?
You can.
Yeah, so-
and it looks like one thing they did is they opened up a whole bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, they do give real world examples here, like Amanda was saying, the cleanup tool in the Photos app where you just kind of circle and say remove that person. That's part of the Apple Intelligence.
Sure.
The advanced searches where it's like, oh, find. Let's say you have a daughter, Katie with stickers on her face, and it'll bring up pictures that have Katie with stickers on her face. And custom memory movies. And the example they give is like all the desserts I ate during the summer last year set to a pop song. And it's personalized because it takes your photos, it knows where everything is. So it'll say, okay, last summer, boom, boom, desserts. I'll look for desserts. I'll look for this time of year, and I'll add it in. And I'll make a little thing for you. And the other thing that a lot of people noticed was the images are definitely not photorealistic. They went out of their way, in my mind, to make those images definitely not photorealistic. Because that's always the big thing of, oh, you're going to create these photos and all of a sudden you're going to have person A do something and it'll look fake. The new Photoshop, if you will.
Sure.
And these are, the images that you show that they're creating. They are either, cartoony or they're obviously images and not, excuse me, don't pull that out. They're obviously images and not photographs. So I think they did that for security reasons. So no one can say, oh, well, Apple created this thing and now everyone's using it to create these fake images that everyone's using. So they can basically say, well, no, we aren't. Our images are obviously not going to look photorealistic, so we don't have an issue with that.
So so there's a lot of that there. It's a sorry, touching base with something.
Okay.
No, it's you're gonna run into the same issues that we are now with like all the other that we deal with the imagery and everything like that. And I'm really curious what their model is going to look like at this point, because they haven't had any kind of open beta. What are they kind of building that off of, or is it just kind of on the back of OpenAI at this point when they're doing all that stuff?
I think
it's
basically on the back of OpenAI.
Yeah, I don't think they've had enough. Unless there's some crazy secret project that they've been on for a while now, and they have this this unicorn going on.
But they mentioned APIs an awful lot. So a
Good.
lot in terms. And by the way, if you are interested in the beta of iOS 18, iPadOS 18, all that, it is out now. My co-host on iPhotography, he's already downloaded and installed and playing with the beta.
But again, that should not include any of the Apple Intelligence situation here.
No.
Well, good news is we have a image expert that is joining us right now on the show. We're gonna have. I've been wanting to have this conversation for a couple of weeks here, and the things worked out. And what a day to have it. We have with us on the line, Chris Maverick is with us. I've known him from the wrestling world, but some people also know him from the comic book world as well, and so many things. You're a professor at Pitt, I think now.
Yes.
If I'm keeping up on what you're doing, Chris, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Hi.
Hey,
Hi, how are you?
We've missed you on the show. It's been forever.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Yeah, I've been real busy, and my life's been really weird and crazy. And I'm sorry I'm late. I literally was recording my podcast until 90 seconds ago.
It's okay. I'm the one that bumped up the show a day, so at the last minute here because my schedule changed. But you know, I'm glad that we got to connect on this. We have something I want to get into, but before I do, I don't know because I didn't ask you in advance. Have you been following the WWDC stuff from today and some of the announcements?
Very closely. So I've got friends who work there, and I always like to know, you know, what's happening in their lives. But also, you mentioned I'm a professor, and I work for University of Pittsburgh. I work in a program called Digital Narrative Interactive Design. So aside from my night job, as it were, as a pro wrestler, for a long time I was a software designer. So I did a lot of technology design, and then about a decade ago, I decided I don't want to be a designer anymore. I want to be an academic. I'm going to start my entire life over in my 40s, where I was like late 30s at the time. And I went to grad school. I got a PhD, and now I work for the University of Pittsburgh in a program called Digital Narrative Interactive Design. So my job is to be sort of a half an English professor doing English Lit and cultural studies, and half a technology professor doing software design and teaching my students how to do humane design, but also how to do how to tell stories and interact with technology. So we'll do work with VR, but we'll also do work with AI. We will do work, one of the common things, I teach a class called digital narrative, and one of the first things they have to do is build a video game. That's like a baptism of fire. And then another thing that they do is they build I have what we call is the critical making task. We give them each an Arduino, and they just have to make a device that interacts with the real world.
Ooh.
So
we need to have you on more often, is what I'm hearing here, because you touch a lot of stuff that we've been hitting up on.
Yeah. So the point is, we do a lot of stuff with technology, and I gave a talk at work right before the end of the semester. We have this thing called the Big Ideas class, where I talked about there's always the question of, is AI good? Is AI bad? Is AI going to take your jobs? And I give this talk where I say, yes, AI is going to take your job. Is that good or bad? Let's talk about it. And let's talk about the concept of, yeah, okay, sure, AI is going to take a job. It might even be your job, because that's what technology does, right? Like technology, the invention of the automobile took the jobs of all the guys who used to drive horse-drawn carriages around. Yes, there are still a few of them, but there are far fewer of them, because that's what technology does. Technology took the job of the elevator operator.
Right.
Technology takes the jobs of everything, because that's what technology does. And in as much as it does that, it's great if AI can bring the ability to create a 5-minute movie that used to take millions and millions of dollars, and then it took thousands and thousands of dollars, and then it became a thing that you could do in your garage if you had access to $500 worth of Adobe software and an iPhone. And it would be great if that became a thing that you could do for $40. Yeah, it sucks if your job is to be a professional videographer.
Yeah,
but also, I mean, like, because that is a problem. But also, it's really great that, like, you can see very creative things by, like, the kid who got a job in the kid who was making Lego versions of Spider-Man, and then he got to be in the next Spider-Verse movie because he was just a 14-year-old kid. And yes, it did take the job of a real animation studio, sort of, but also I'm really happy that a 14-year-old can show his creativity now, right? Like, there's a give and take, and sort of my job as an educator is sort of to teach adaptability. Can you do artistic stuff with computers? Of course you can. Let's learn what that means to use AI as art and not fear it, because otherwise you end up in, and I actually use this clip in my talks. I show my students the Hard Times promo, because you end up in this Dusty Rhodes world.
I was just gonna say
where you got, hey, the computer took your job, Daddy. That's Hard Times, because that's what it is, right? And Dusty warned about that 30 years ago.
Dustin, I just watched Collision from Saturday, and Dustin was paraphrasing that promo again on there, and it was just like I kept ringing in my head as you've been talking about this the whole damn time. I love that.
All the non wrestling fans listening to the show are like, "What the hell are they talking about?" Watch the Hard Times.
Well, yeah, it was the 80s, and it was like a computer took your job, and here's a watch, and you got to take 3 jobs.
Textile workers are out of work.
Yep.
Hard times, I wouldn't. A lot of workers are out of work. They got 3-4 wages, 3-4 jobs, can't pay their wages, can't buy their food. And hard times is when a man has been on the job for 30 years. 30 years. They give him a watch, they kick him in the butt, and they say, "Hey, a computer took your job, Daddy." That's hard times.
I love it. I love it. So, so speaking of which, like the thing that really kind of caught my attention here, you did a post here back at the end of May that really caught fire for in a lot of different ways. What I want to kind of
friends over that.
I lost friends over that.
Like several people defriended me over that post.
Oh no! Oh no! Wow. Yeah, I've only lost one over these conversations. So, but anyways. So, and I don't want to talk so much about that part. I want to talk about, like, you did a really cool post on Facebook where you did a discovery. And please be extra descriptive for everyone that may be listening to the audio version of it. Like, what am I looking at here, and what were you trying to accomplish?
Okay, so again, and you talked about WWDC. I keep abreast, even though I'm not a designer anymore. It's part of my job. If my job is to teach kids how to create with technology, I have to know what everything is. So I'm constantly using the Adobe suite. I have to know how to do AI stuff. I have to know how to do VR stuff. I have to be able to code things for, in Unity and in Unreal, and I have to be able to do Arduino stuff, and I draw because it's part of it, because it's my job, part of it just because it's fun, and I enjoy it. And I was a designer for many years for a reason. It is a thing that I actually do still enjoy. And I'm a big comic book nerd, and I've been playing with AI stuff. I was playing with Playground AI, it's not Midjourney, but it's a Stable Diffusion was the base, and now they've got their own code base. But it's an AI art suite that is a website, and I've been playing with it. And in my head, I was just like, I wonder how good I could make this if I wanted to. I wanted to build something that that was recognizable, because I can certainly do an image. And in fact, I was playing with stuff. I was like, oh, what would it be? What would Screaming Mimi, Songbird from the Thunderbolts, look like if she was played by Liv Morgan? Because I saw Liv Morgan scream on wrestling, and I was like, oh, perfect, because she's a wrestler, and boom. And that was easy, but that was really, really easy to do, and it takes 10 seconds. But then I thought, people kept complaining about how art, this is just taking the job away from the real artist. So I was like, well, how hard would this really be? What if I took a very recognizable comic book image, and I went with the picture of Mary Jane meeting Peter Parker for the first time, because they're not in costumes, so you can't rely on the Spider-Man costume. But I could say this is something that it's an image that I've seen a million times. It's been in movies, it's been in cartoons, and can I make the AI make me a realistic version of what that panel will look like? And a lot of people were like, well, you didn't really draw it. No, I didn't really draw it, because if I'd drawn it, I would have been done in half an hour. So I took 3 days. It took me 3 days.
So time is not a
no. To get what you saw, to get what you saw there was, I asked it over and over again to generate things, and I made tweaks, and then I did little things, and I was like, oh no, I need about 45% is not enough. Let's try 46. It's me squeezing knobs back and forth over and over again for 3 days, and not like around the clock, but on and off, in my spare time. And I think I iterated over 600 or 700 different pictures.
Jeez.
And I of trying to get variations of this and seeing what would work and what wouldn't work, until I got something that I was like, that's it. That's the look that I want. And then I posted it to Facebook, and then in the comments I said, and here are some failures. Here are some non-versions of this, and here's what it takes in order to get it. And here's some of the assumptions that, that's the one you're showing right now is, it really wants photos to be what I would call Instagram ready. So you get a lot of very, very sexy 20-something looking ideas, because it thinks that that's what good photos look like. And so there's a lot of me tweaking it and trying to say, no, I want them to look directly at each other, trying to get them to be realistic but still fun, and still have the essence of what in my head feels like Mary Jane and Peter should look like. I wanted it to be a photo, not a comic. I wanted them to be good looking and in shape, because they should be a model and a superhero, but not like a video game character. So and it's still not perfect. I look at that and I still see problems with it. That one wasn't actually
that's what somebody dropped in there.
Yeah, that's drawn by Tom Scioli, who's a local artist that I know. And he drew a version of this, and my friend Mark Best dropped it in there. And it's just sort of a Tom faking what he thinks of AI doing, trying to reproduce stuff.
So it's Mary Jane is in like full like spider suit thing with a Venom shirt kind of deal, and just like a weird misshapen side face of a Spider-Man.
And to be fair,
the text being wrong too.
Yes,
right. And to be fair, a lot of what I got generated, I mean, I only posted some of the best ones to that Facebook thread. A lot of what I had generated did make stuff like that. Famously, AI is very bad at knowing how many fingers a person is supposed to have. There are. So that is a flaw of AI. But also, it knows things like if I tell it I want there to be a Peter and a Mary Jane, it knows that Peter and Mary Jane, oh, you must mean Spider-Man. So it starts sneaking more Spider-Man-y stuff in. Hence things like, oh, suddenly Mary Jane's wearing the Spider-Man shirt. And it's like, that's not what I want. Please just give her a black tank top. I just want a black tank top, like in the original image.
Yeah.
And it tries to do things like that. And then there's also a little bit of, there's some tricks that you have to do. So for instance, once I got it mostly correct, I started using small localized changes. I didn't like her belt, so I had to just regenerate the belt, not the entire picture. And parts of that are, I've been doing computer artwork on some level or another since 1989. So it's I've done this long enough that I've matured with the software, and so I know what I'm doing. And that's why I think it's weird when people are like, oh, well, anybody could do this. No, I assure you, not anybody could do that. It's sort of like when people say, oh, well, auto-tune isn't real singing, because if it's auto-tune, anybody can sing. And no, anybody can't. I know, because I've got auto-tune and I still can't sing.
Exactly.
I sound better than I sound without auto-tune, but you're not giving me a record contract because I'm just not good,
We were playing with images a few months ago, because I was trying to create just something fun for, again, we were just trying to play with it, especially on these, like the podcast projects. We're not using obviously the image stuff for client stuff yet. Maybe a little bit of the text generation and things like that. But hey, rewrite this, make it sound. I'm a terrible writer, so I try to spruce it up a little bit, things like that, right? Get some ideas, that kind of stuff, around other projects that would enhance. But it's not the core. but we were trying to make some images based on Katie from the show and Riz were doing like a video game series we were trying to do, and it's just them sitting on the couch. And we tried to create it and do it over and over again. And kept like over sexualizing her and him, you know, things like that. I'm just like, no. And like you describe like what he looks like, and I feel bad like describing what they actually look like because they don't look because nobody looks like a damn supermodel, right? You know, it's like no, and his hair's like this, and da 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 da.
No, make my friend dumpier.
Yeah. It's like no, make up like no kid. Yeah, like what's the nicest way to tell the AI like make him like look like a normal person that you don't see on television and Instagram, right? And then like you know but then like my wife got into it, and she's an English major and knows how to kind of she's a really good detail person, right? And she was almost got it. Could create our couch, had the wall baffling, the sound baffling on here, and everything like that. And, like it was really, really good with that. And that was kind of my realization. Like this is her time to be an artist because she can get into the nitty gritty and details and tell it what she wants. And she was she had again like 30 iterations or something like that until we got something we kind of liked. But like that's what I felt like it kind of opened the door for her to be, because she does social media, she does a little bit of visual work, but to really kind of dig in on something on a different angle like this, I think that's what you're talking like. It kind of enables some people that when I went to art school, I can't draw worth shit, right? And I was like, and that was the biggest thing. I was like, I went to web design because I can't draw. And I was going to go into computer animation. I just went to the Pixar exhibit down at the Carnegie Science Center, and it was bringing me back of what I could have been doing and what I was looking into in late high school, right? But this, this kind of like even brings people into art, into drawing, into digital art, something like that, maybe a different angle, or enables people's creativity that like I can't create something from scratch, but I can inspire and go off of that. Right, like people that their brains work a little differently, if that makes sense. Does that
absolutely
track?
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm interested in it, right? Like there's a lot of misconceptions about how the software works, and that's kind of to be fair, it's my job to understand it, which is why it's, if you read the comments on that thread, there's several people saying, well, don't you understand it's taking jobs away, it's doing this, I'm like, yes, I do understand. It's, like I understand why people are afraid, but also this is literally my job. What do you want me to do? Not do my job? Like this is what I do, is I have to understand this. And I thought, hey, maybe it would be fun to do my process sort of publicly, which is a thing that I do. If you've been following me on the internet anytime over the last like literally 30 years, when I decide I'm going to do something, I write about it publicly. I used to do it on Usenet, and then I did it on LiveJournal, and then I did it on my own blog, and I do it on Facebook, and it's a thing that I've done for decades. When I decided I wanted to become a professional wrestler, I had a thing where I would post every day of, today I learned how to do a suplex, here's what, and today I learned this, and oh my God, it hurt. And like, I'll do that. If I'm working on an article for, for an academic journal, here's my thoughts on gender and Spider-Man. And, that's what I do. So I wrote about this because I was writing about it, but I don't think people understand what it is, because I think people's idea of how the software works is they believe that if I want a picture of Mary Jane and Peter Parker, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find all these pictures of Mary Jane and Peter Parker, and I'm going to cut them up, and I'm going to paste them back together, and then I'm going to get the one that I've done, and that's how it works, because that's just how it's conceived in their mind, and that's not how it works. And in fact, if it were, there'd be no legal issues, because the law is very clear that collage is a respected art form, and I can go through a bunch of magazines and cut pictures out and make a perfect picture, and that is 100% completely legal. That's not what it's doing. What it's doing is it's looking at every picture it could find on the internet, and it trained an LLM, a piece of learning software, trained itself how to draw by looking at other images. Which, to be fair, is exactly how I trained myself how to draw when I was 13 years old, right? Like when I was 13 years old, I decided, do I know how to draw? Yeah, Or maybe I know how to copy a little bit of Jack Kirby and a little bit of Jim Lee and a little bit of of Chuck Dixon, right? Like I just got like I've got like bits and pieces of my favorite artists in my head that get like smushed together into some style that is the Chris Maverick art style. How did I learn to be a photographer? Well, I read a bunch of books and stuff, and I took some classes, but also I looked at photos from National Geographic, photos from Playboy, photos from Cosmo, photos from Better Homes and Gardens, right? Like I looked at things and I said, how does light hit these things? What knowledge can I apply from looking at National Geographic and Better Homes and Garden and Playboy and smush them together and learn how to make this portrait? And that's just what you do. That's how you learn that's how I learned podcast editing, right? Like podcast editing, I never took a class. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. Like that's how I learned. And then I practiced over and over again. And then that's how I learned how to use Adobe Audition.
It is so I follow Jeff Jarvis. I don't know if you're familiar with a professor, also a professor and also longtime journalist up in New York City. And one of the ideas there that from the podcast I listen to with him every week are that process you just described. It is not illegal for you to be inspired by and learn from and be influenced by the things that you see. So why is it illegal for it to happen on a large scale? And then these are questions that legally that need to be sussed out, right? And my take has always been, much like you, we need to understand this. We need to understand where we're going with this. Obviously, eventually, like the legal things are way beyond you and me, and they'll get figured out.
I'm not a lawyer.
And we're going to have to navigate that, whatever that is. Whether we can or can't. I'd rather be familiar with what's going on when I hear some incredibly insane law coming from Congress that nobody understands what's going on here. They're definitely not reading your posts or listening to your podcast or taking your classes on this kind of stuff. And and that's the thing. Like this is our industry. We're both in a visual industry, and it's being affected by something like this. Whether it's a tool to help us get to the next level, bring others to the next level, or we have to survive in this. We may be the buggy whip operators in this situation, and we have to identify that and learn how to drive, if you will.
One of the things that always bugs me is like, I think that there needs to be regulation? Yes.
Sure.
The laws that are built around copyright, and not even, I'm saying just copyright. The concept of copyright is based on concepts from 200 years ago, and we kept putting band-aids on them over and over and over again to the point that like we decided eventually, and now it's 95 years, right? Like we have the Sonny Bono copyright, the fabled, the Mickey Mouse copyright law, right?
Right.
But even that is ending, right? Mickey Mouse fell into the public domain for some versions earlier this year, right? Because copyright should not be it was not designed to be about how something lives in eternity. And that's sort of it's a thing that we did, and it was probably a mistake. And I think that the reason that happened is that the people who decide how laws work are not necessarily well versed in the technology that they're trying to regulate. They don't know anything. The median age of Congress is like 60. The president of the United States is, I don't care what your politics are, the president of the United States is 81 years old. The guy who's running to beat him, the young guy running to beat him, the former president, is 78. So one way or the other, whoever's president next year is going to be in their 80s. And like a bunch of Congress people in their 70s are not going to make good decisions as to how to fix any of this, right? Like, so we're sort of on our own. I remember watching the TikTok hearings, right, where you have Congress people asking, well, is there any way you could make TikTok not access the local network? And like the tech people in the room are just kind of going, what the hell is he talking about? And he's like, well, because what, like, if you like, is it true that TikTok, if China controls TikTok, it could access things on the local Wi-Fi if you ran TikTok? And like, they're like, Yes, cause that's what internet is. Like what are you even asking? And it's similar like when when Mark Zuckerberg testified in front of Congress, and they're like, well, it doesn't make sense. Facebook can't be free because like how else would you how would you stay in business? And Zuck and I'm never going to be on Zuckerberg's side, but I just remember watching Zuckerberg go, I sell ads and data. What do you like? As though this is an obvious thing to anyone who's been on a computer in the last 30 years. But you're talking about people who haven't been. You're talking, these are laws by people who pay somebody in their 40s and 50s to use the computer with them. So even the people they pay are not young. So to have someone like that regulating TikTok or, Stable Diffusion is not they aren't capable of making the kinds of decisions that need to be made in order to make these sort of reasonably work. So what's going to end up happening is we're going to have for a while, we're going to have the Wild West, and we're going to have people, people right now, I saw this being posted on both Twitter and on Facebook recently, where people are like, Lord and Miller they've promised to not use AI in the next Spider-Verse movie, so you go them. And I'm like, okay, so first off, Lord and Miller are not the good guys in the situation. Lord and Miller are trying to deflect conversation away from the fact that they overworked and underpaid all of the animators on the last two Spider-Verse movies. But also what he said, I think it was Phil Lord that they actually interviewed. It might have been Chris Maverick. I think it was Lord. And what he actually says is, yeah, well, we don't want to use generative AI because we're about making original content, not about stealing concepts from other people. And I'm like, well, I mean, you're not going to use true generative AI because you've got to make a movie about Spider-Man, not about just some random superhero, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you already own the IP.
Yeah.
But the way, if you actually understand the technology, the thing that Stable Diffusion does is not terribly different than what in-betweening software does. Like the idea of animating, the idea of making a walk cycle. You don't animate every frame of a walk cycle anymore. When you made Snow White, you did. But when you make something like Spider-Verse, you draw Miles here and then you draw Miles, 2 seconds later over here, and then you tell the computer figure out how he got there. And that's an AI. So of course you're going to use it for the movie, or you're insane, right? Like that's and people don't think about things like that. People don't think about the fact that the spell check that you use when you're typing a text message is an AI. And I know people don't like to think about it, but people will fight it because they feel like it's taking a job away and they feel like it's doing something, so untoward. But also, Apple announced today, as you said when I first showed up, Apple had WWDC today, and they're like, yeah, Siri's just gonna do this now. So it's just gonna be in your and it's just gonna be in your text messaging, and it's just gonna be in this, and it's like and it's like people. I saw some pushback. I saw some people saying, well, I'm glad I don't use Siri for anything, and I'm like, you don't say, hey Siri.
Yeah.
You use Siri for a lot because it's just part of the operating system.
Yep.
And what are you going to do? Not have an iPhone? Sure. Go ahead and buy your Android phone. And you know what? They do it too, because Google also puts AI in it. Like the concept of saying that you're not going to do this, what you really mean is you don't want to feel like you're being a part of the problem, but people don't understand how ubiquitous it is. I remember when people were very, very upset about the concept of location services, and we've got to stop this. We've got to stop this. We've got to stop this. And now it's just a thing that nobody thinks about anymore. And do you know when people were afraid of location services? It was like 2019. It was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember people. Do you remember when people used to like buy Post-it note tape to put over their web cameras? And it's like, oh, we can't do this because what if they're peaking? And
I
I'm like,
still
well,
see a lot of, especially in the business world, I see a lot of people, when we do conferences and bring their own laptops, like you see that tape on there a lot. There's a
and meanwhile they've got an iPhone in their pocket, like
exactly, and I think that's the thing, and like Android, same thing. You don't think Google's going to integrate this as well, and so no, it's been, there's a lot to parse here. There's a lot coming very quickly. And I'm hoping people listen to shows like this and other great podcasts, including yours, and tell people your podcast so they can continue with these kinds. I'm sure you're going to have very similar conversations to this going on.
Yeah, we've had a couple. we've had a few, and they're always weirdly taken. So my main show, which is not this week, is not about, nor was last week, not about AI, but I host a show called VoxPopCast, VoxPopCast, because I thought it was a great branding decision to pick a show name that no one could spell. But VoxPopCast, and we have a different pop culture topic every week. And then we try to take a combined approach where we're using actual academics who do stuff with pop culture, like me, and then we combine it with just fans of the thing. So this most recent episode was very silly. We fan cast the X-Men MCU movie, and what would, so I'll give spoilers for what mine, we did 4 different versions of what could an X-Men MCU movie mean. Oh yeah, and I made my poster with AI because I wanted to be able to say, hey, what would Glenn Powell look like as Cyclops? And yes, I could have drawn all those things, but that would have taken me 6 hours, and it wouldn't have looked as good for the purposes that I needed as the 30 seconds that it took me to generate that. So, or actually it was more like, probably 15 minutes to generate the album artwork there. And it was just like, so you'll see, like, I wanted Joey King to be Shadowcat in my version. So in my version of an X-Men movie, my version of the first X-Men movie would be, today is the first day of school, and you kind of go when all these kids enroll in Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, and because there's these rumors that it's this liberal school for groomers, the Purifiers, who are the Proud Boys, basically come, and they come in and they do a school shooting. Except for, it turns out all the kids have superpowers. So it's like, that was my version of the movie. It's like it's a Uvalde Sandy Hook kind of world, but no, the kids actually have laser beam eyes. Was my version of,
and hijinks ensue. I also want to share real quick for the video version here, and you sent me the thumbnails of a lot of the. Well, no, that's the wrong one there. There we go. That was the wrong computer. There we go.
Yeah, that's just me iterating over Mary Jane over and over again.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that is fantastic.
So yeah, we did, and then like next week's show is we've got a couple of historians on to talk about the cultural genesis of Barbie, like literally the Barbie doll, not the movie. I mean, the movie we talk about a little bit, but that's what I was just recording before this. We have a couple of people on to talk about the Barbie has been around for 65 years, and so we trace the origins of Barbie, and we talk about like its cultural impact, and that's the show. So it's a different topic every week. Sometimes it's very tech heavy, sometimes it's very comic book heavy, sometimes it's about fashion toys like Barbie. So that's what we did, and like, so we've done AI shows a couple times. We had a show where we had a lawyer come on and talk about what the actual law is. We had a show where we've had artists come on, and we've had artists who've come on and talked about their fears about AI, and we've had artists who embrace AI, which is, because I think that, and you can tell by that Facebook post, there are people who have sort of, well, no artist believes in this, and then like I have like my friend Jamie on, who is a working artist, and he's like, no, I use AI all the time in my work because I don't want to be left behind when it takes over in a year or two.
Exactly.
And that's, we're trying to understand what all of it is, because I think that it's not that I don't understand, like a computer took your job. One day a computer is going to take my job.
Yep.
So it's not that I'm don't want it to, it's not that I'm not afraid, it's that I think the solution is to steer into the skid, right? Like if you've ever driven on snow, you can't fight the skid. You have to steer into it, and you have to figure out, okay, so we're going to skid. What can we do now? Because I'm thinking about, like, I read an article which they were proving that AI was stealing pieces of artwork because they looked at in the bottom right hand corner. Look, you can see that there's pieces of people's signatures there, and I was like, that's not what's happening. And they're like, no, it clearly is what's happening. I'm like, no, it's not. The AI has looked at a million pictures, and it's realized that when people draw portraits, they scribble vaguely but not exactly letter-like things in the bottom right-hand corner, and everybody does it. So it thinks that that's what you're supposed to do.
It's mimicking. It's mimicking it more than anything.
Right. Which is what I do, right? Like, on most of my pictures, if I draw, where do I sign it? I sign it in the bottom right-hand corner. Why? I don't know, because that's where everybody signs it.
Because you've watched like people do this for how many years, right? No, right. I think that's it. I think the more that you look at that, you say steering the skid, but also trying to understand the tool, and understand what it is that you as an expert brings that medium that this tool can't yet provide. I very similarly, the more and more we have, I just grabbed the old one, an iPhone comes out, like, I do live production. And also I know friends of ours that have been on the show, they do live productions, but they have an iPad and 2 iPhones, and that's all they need, and they put that stuff on like mass media, versus I go and take a carload of stuff and drive it to Bethlehem, PA, and do a streaming pay-per-view for an MMA group, right? That people are watching, and work with a company and do that, and do an entire day of setup, and they I don't know what they got charged because I'm a contractor on that, but for much more. So it's like, okay, what am I bringing to the table that you can't just bring an iPhone and some kid to do, so like, and what do we steer into, right? You
also have to realize there's a point when you have to accept the hubris as an artist.
Absolutely.
So I've also worked as a photographer quite a bit, and in photography there's an issue right now that it's becoming harder and harder to make a living as a wedding photographer, because traditionally, as a wedding photographer, you go and you set up and you watch the bride get dressed, and you take pictures of her and her friends drinking wine at 8 a.m. and getting ready for the thing, and then you go to the groomsmen and you get them getting dressed, and you go back and forth, and then you take 1,000 pictures at the wedding, and then you take 5,000 pictures at the ceremony, and then you go home and you edit them all, and then you give them a book of proofs, and then you say, all right, what do you want? And then the ones that they like, they pick out 60 that they want, and those are the ones that you do the full edits on, and then you order, and then this entire process costs thousands and thousands of dollars, and that's how you make a living as a wedding photographer. And that's great. But around 2018, so for the last 6 or 7 years, it's become increasingly popular for people who are trying to save money on their wedding to say, you know what I want you to do is everybody take as many pictures as you can, and then tag us on IG, hashtag Smith Jones Wedding 2024, and then that's going to be our wedding photos. Or here's a Google Drive, just drop all your photos in here, and then the bride and groom will say, all right, so now I've got 10,000 pictures from different angles from all of my friends and family. And you know what? The honest truth is they are far crappier than what I can provide you as a photographer.
Absolutely.
I'm a better photographer with my my $3,000 camera rig than you are with an iPhone. I am, and that's not ego. I'm just a better photographer. However, you don't care about like my skill as a photographer for the stupid picture of little Johnny dancing with grandma, like a 5-year-old. Like, you don't need a wonderful picture. You just want the cute moment of the 5-year-old dancing with the 85-year-old that you can say, oh yeah, and Johnny danced with grandma at our wedding, and we've got the picture. And any snapshot that any idiot takes with an iPhone is just fine, because you're probably not going to print it anyway. You're just going to have a folder. It's 2024. You're just going to have a folder of our wedding photos that you're going to save for when you need to make a slideshow at some point.
Or put it on Facebook anyways or something, right?
Yeah, right. You don't need you don't need the skills of the artist. So what people have done is they either don't hire a wedding photographer at all, or they hire a wedding photographer for an hour and a half instead of 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it means the wedding photographer makes less money.
Yep.
It does.
Yep.
So is that like, I understand why the wedding photographer hates that, because again, I've worked as a photographer. It sucks. But also the people who were hiring wedding photographers for 8 hours were the people who had money.
Mhm.
Because if you were poor, you were never getting a wedding photographer for 8 hours.
No.
Like, I mean, I'm not even all that poor. I'm not rich, but I'm not, like, I got married for $85 because, like, my wife and I, got we went and did like we went to City Hall, like we never had a big wedding. Like, not everybody does this. So
Mhm.
and do I have pictures? Yes, I have. Like, we got married at a sushi restaurant, and the pictures from my wedding were taken with a cell phone by our waitress.
Mhm.
Like, that's what we did, and like our witness like also filmed it, with like in video. So like like we didn't have as good a layout as other people, because that's just what we wanted. So you have to accept that not everybody wants this weird collaborative major art piece. Sometimes for some people, it's good enough to have just have 20 seconds worth of thought, because I'm just trying to get this thing out of my head. Like the artwork from the X-Men picture that you showed earlier.
Yeah.
That was me tossing it up because I do a show every week, and I don't have a graphics department. I just have me.
Yep.
And for the concepts of the stuff that I wanted to do, I could have worked on that all day, or I spent half an hour at 2 a.m. this morning mocking that up, and it was good enough for the amount of effort that people are going to look at that picture this week, and then they're never going to think about it again. I mean, we'll have other people who look at the back catalog, but
Sure.
that picture only has to be good enough for one episode out of the 330 that we've done.
Catch your
right?
attention for 1 week to get out
For
there
1
on
week,
social media.
and next week it'll be something with Barbie in it.
Absolutely.
And that's all it has to be. And I think that people have to understand that some of this is meant for disposability. At WWDC today, Apple talked about their AI image generator, and what they want to be able to do is they want to be able to say, essentially making meme stickers on the fly, right?
Mhm.
Emojis on the fly, right?
Mhm.
Like, you're trying to be able to say, hey, wouldn't it be funny if there was a cat at the dinner table, and then you say cat at dinner table, and it generates a cartoon of it, and then you go, good enough, send. And it only needs to be good enough for the joke that is, that conversation with your friend for like that 30 seconds.
For an
and then
audience
you're
of
never gonna think
yeah,
about it.
for an audience of one, right? Like
Yes.
throwaway generation. So, Chris,
Mhm.
it's been great. It's been far too long.
Yeah.
I need to get the VoxPopCast back in my listening rotation for sure. I also need time to listen to more podcasts, but that's
God.
a whole other story, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
you should come on sometime. Yeah, because I don't think you've ever been on our show. I've been on
Oh,
yours.
no, I don't think so,
You
yeah.
need to come on ours and talk about something. Yeah.
Sure, we'll have to figure that out. So, well, thank you so much. Again, go check out the podcast. Where can people find you online generally?
I'm most places at Chris Maverick. I post probably long form mostly right now on Facebook, because Twitter is a abysmal cesspool. I still post on Twitter, but
Yeah.
like it, and yes, it's Twitter. I refuse to use the other name. It is, but like it is increasingly just dreary and horrible. I have a blog, which is chrismaverick.com, but I never post my own blog. My most of my blogging is either on Facebook or on the VoxPopCast.com blog, which you already popped up on screen on the video version. And then
I'm sharing this
I guess
just because
if you
of the
wanna do-
visual. Because
yeah, my last post was about Joe Biden like 2 or 3 years ago.
making
I
a heel
just-
turn.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I called for a Joe Biden heel turn where just because I thought it would be fun to have him. You see, I have my mock-up RNC shirt, like an NWO shirt. I mostly most of the time I'm at Vox Popcast, or I'm on Facebook, but also like I said, Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky when I remember to post there. It's just like the social media aspect is, like I'm on Mastodon, and when I remember to post to Mastodon. And then like somebody else said, "Well, do you ever post a letterbox?" And I went, "I have a letterbox."
To what? I don't even know
I-
Letterbox.
Oh, Letterbox is it's for movie fans. It's great.
Oh, of course.
But
Okay.
but I forget that I have it.
Exactly.
But like most places, if social media exists, I usually jump in and I reserve at Chris Maverick for myself really
Yes.
fast.
Yes,
So
as-
I'm
as-
usually at Chris
I
Maverick.
would say anybody should. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We gotta have a later version of this conversation for sure on this show. Why don't you get it on when Wrestle Host can be on too, so we can expand the
good.
conversation. So, and thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for checking out this Monday episode. Hope you let us know your take on the WWDC, your take on AI and art and everything like that. Please go check out Chris's. We'll link the posting question that we talked about on this episode too. So again, I will be on the road this week. I will be at the Michigan Speedway with our friends Formula SAE for the EV competition. So that's going to be, so follow me at Sorgatron on all the social medias, especially the visual ones. I'm sure I'll have some imagery. I hope there's no injury there. I mean, it is motorsports, and it's always a dangerous thing, as the thing I read every time I go onto the site. Katie will be with me as well for that as my photographer, and they give us a golf cart, so I'm sure nothing wrong. There'll be nothing that goes wrong. Thank you, everybody. You have been our awesome audience. Have an awesome week. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at Sorgatron.